Welcome to Fantastic Comics Fan Presents. This is a podcast I created to showcase indie creators. This time around, I'm bringing on Tom Marvelli. Tom, tell fans a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First, thanks for having me on. And I'm the publisher of Another Door Comics and the writer of our debut title, The Boy and the Bot. Prior to that, career-wise, I was the creative executive or a creative executive at Marvel and the creative director at Hasbro for their action brands portfolio.
So, what made you decide to get into creating comic books?
For many years, I've shepherded all these other brands and characters and storylines for all these other companies. And I was at the point where my twins were about to go off to college. It was going to be empty nest overnight. I got two 19-year-old twins, boy and girl, and they're both in college. And so overnight, it was empty nest. And I was like, you know what? I really want to spend that time and get back to one of my passions, my passion project and things I love, which is storytelling and creating characters. It really started from that. And it really just became just re-engaging with my passion of storytelling. I just wanted to take on that challenge, see if I could do for myself what I've done for other companies and see where it takes me. Challenge accepted.
So, who influences you to create something?
Sure, absolutely. If you go back to the span of my sort of life of reading comics since I was a little kid, I would say Image Comics are the founders of that, going off and building their own universe of comics and characters and what have you. Fast forward to the guys like Ghost Machine with Jeff Johns, Joe Quesada doing his amazing comics work and so forth. It seems like this is really where people are getting to spread their wings a little bit, tell the stories they want to tell, and develop the types of characters that they want to develop. So I felt it was the right time at the right point in my life to give it a shot. So
Your company is called Another Door Comics. How long have you been publishing, and how did you come up with the name, and what's that name mean to you?
sure. So for me, it was really Another Door Comics. It stands for basically always having those other options in life, right? The paths that you choose, no matter the time or your circumstance. Sometimes opportunities come to you, other times you got to create them yourself. And to me, it's about building your own door and follow your own path. And that could be at any point in your lifespan. You can go through, have jobs come towards you, careers, and so forth. And you can always find your ultimate path and your destination on what you want to do for what your life's work wants to be, and you always have those options available to you. So that's where Another Door came from. We're about a year and 3 months in business, and we started late last year with our first crowdfunding campaign with that one book, our first title, The Boy and the Bot, which is book one. This year, we're expanding into books two and three, as well as a second title. So our goal is to have three new books out this year.
So, tell the fans what Boy in the Bot is about and what type of fan might like. So today comic books are all types of people. So what type of fan would enjoy your type of comic book?
Yeah, and purposely having written a story many years ago, for me, it was like doing the superhero thing. That genre has been just so done, and it's like really to come up with something new there. And certainly people are coming up with some great new stuff there, but it really is dancing between the raindrops a little bit. And while there's been other stories of boys with or young children with robot companions and what have you, I felt I had a pretty unique take on it. And for me, so the overall, the sort of log line or the elevator pitch of the story is what is Project Blue and why was its inventor killed trying to protect its secret? And it's when a lonely boy finds himself on the run after a devastating loss, he becomes the target of a ruthless corporation determined to reclaim its stolen technology at any cost. As relentless operatives close in, the boy and his newfound robotic guardian must navigate a treacherous world, confronting his deepest fears while uncovering the true meaning of family and friendship. Together, they embark on a journey of self-discovery, forging unbreakable bonds in the face of overwhelming danger. So again, that was the overarching story because there's multiple plot lines that take place there. There's some big mysteries and a big reveal that'll happen in the third act or the third part of the book, the third chapter. And so again, for me, it was really about telling a story from of a 12-year-old boy's point of view. Again, just to make that relatable to a younger audience, purposely wanting a younger audience to engage with the book. Obviously, I want adults as well, but I really wanted to appeal to a younger adult or a young adult kid.
So how do you find your creators? And with everybody seemingly putting out their own creator-owned books and small projects, how do you convince them to come over to work with you?
The first person who I reached out to was Rafael Loureiro, who's the primary artist on our first book. And him and I got in contact through social channels. He had posted that he was available to do some work. His art style was perfect for the type of story I wanted to tell. Really clean lines, had almost like an animated kind of a feel to it. And we hit it off immediately. I told him the story. He was a big fan of robots and so forth. And so we just clicked right out of the gate. He got a call from Marvel, which was awesome for him, and to work on Marvel's Dazzler comic book. And he was obviously torn about whether to stay or to go. And I said, no, go. That's a great career opportunity. And so in that process, he helped me find his replacement ultimately in Leo Rodriguez. And so Leo came on and did the last 3, 4 pages of the book for me. And he's doing all of book 2 and all of book 3. So when you read it as one big unit, it reads really cohesively visually. I also brought in Daniel Maya, who did the prologue for book 1. And because again, just building up these new relationships, again, same thing, just through mutual connections, talent agents, and what have you. And so Daniel right now is working on the second title for me as well, which we'll talk about another time. But that's another one that he's doing. So again, working with all those artists, and then also bringing in Ren Spiller as our colorist. He was a good friend of Raphael's, and he really helps visually make all the stuff really cohesive. His coloring is just gorgeous on the stuff, really bright and colorful, gives it a youthful vibe, again, that I think will appeal to a younger audience as well.
As always, I do a lot of research and nitpicking into things. And I was looking at your website. It's very professional looking. Who designed it? Who keeps it up? Who manages it? And how important is that in terms of marketing your product?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the website was a paramount piece of the puzzle because obviously people engage on social channels and on .coms and so on. So you really do have to have that website presence. And for me, it was really about putting that footprint down. Now, in terms of the design of it, I designed the initial look of what I wanted in terms of having ads, advertising type stuff on the sides, a big banner graphic where I wanted the video, the trailers to be displayed when you first log on, and so on and so forth when you first key in, and all the different features and things that we wanted to talk about on the page holistically. So once I had the visual of what that was, I then turned it over to a good friend of mine who's a web designer, web developer. So all that back end coding and the actual build of that, and then him embellishing it even further with different types of swipes and slides and the way that things phase in. That was all him adding those touches to that, which again made it come out as great as it did. At least I think it came out great.
How often do you like put out a newsletter and do you use like constant contact or anything like that?
One of the things that we were looking to update is the newsletter section. What I started most recently, about a month ago now, is a Substack. And through Substack is where I'm pushing out those newsletters. One of the updates that we'll be making to the website is a pass-through for that newsletter that'll take you to my Substack account. And just like anything else with Substack, you got to build that readership, build that audience. And as outside of the talent that's actually helped me build the books, I am pretty much a one-man band in terms of trying to do a lot of these other things. So it's like, where do you want to spend your day and your time? Is it building this audience, building that audience? Is it overall holistically? And obviously we can talk about that too. So some of those challenges of building that audience, I think in the indie space is probably the biggest thing. There's a lot of people in this space currently. And it's like, how do you bring eyeballs and an audience to the projects that you're working on and giving them everything a fair shake?
You also have merchandise on your website. Is that going too far ahead or was it real costly to do it? You've only been out for a year versus somebody who's been doing this for 4 years. I'm like, wow, he's got merchandise. So how did you do that and how does that work?
Of course. So when we were first starting our publishing plans and building up that first book, of course, the first people that are going to support you are your friends and family, former colleagues, what have you, and you build your audience from there. But one of the things I was hearing from friends and family is so not everyone's a comic book reader, but they still want to support you, right? So they'll buy the book, but also t-shirts, and they want to support you however they can, but also make it something that they're going to want to use. So that's where through those conversations it started. And I've had family who have bought the t-shirts, bought like an eclectic mix of different merchandise. And that was their way of wanting to support the initiative and really just wear their in pride. Hey, look at what my friend or family member is putting together here. And so we've seen some really good results there as well. But yes, to your point, it's very early days, but I did want to put that footprint there for those that were asking for it.
Have you done any conventions, any other podcasting?
Yeah, so I've been doing I'll call it the podcasting circuit most recently, because one of the things I learned was, again, everything's a learning curve on this. Again, coming from Marvel, where it was direct market specific and that business plan and how those things operated, this is a bit different. So it's a little bit of a learning curve in terms of crowdfunding and understanding that space. Through crowdfunding, it's like we didn't do a pre-launch, we went right to launch. We jumped right in because again, I knew I had the friends and family set up there. But from that, what we learned really was that we needed to give ourselves a little bit longer a runway with that stuff and get more promotion materials out there. So that's why doing these podcasts and talking to other folks, again, to my earlier point, like just getting the word out, building that audience, creating a wider net of people that may be interested in reading our books.
I mentioned those things because
Mhm.
your background is specifically
Mhm.
boy in the bot,
Yes.
very well organized,
Yes.
very much brand centric and very professional. Because I will
Yes.
not to rag on other creators, but they'll be in their living room, they'll be doing this, and I'm like, you're very much brand focused. If you look
Yes.
on my end, I'm brand focused because I've got the
Mhm.
podcast. I know you do Substack. How did you get involved with Substack? Why do you do it? How do you grow it? What's the
Sure. I try to do one a week. In general, one a week is my goal, but there are times where I don't have enough collected during that week to promote. So maybe I'll wait a second week or a third week until I feel the time is right. And it's really just, do I have enough of material of interest to share with the public? We didn't do one last week, but we'll do one this week because I have been doing several podcasts. There's been some other things that have come out. And right now, one of the artists is at a convention at the moment in promoting our second title that he's announcing there. And so those are the types of things that we'll try to do through Substack as well. And so again, on average, one a week, but at least minimum twice a month.
so how important is social media in terms of marketing for you?
For me, it's really about getting the messaging out. I spent most of my career at Marvel on consumer products, doing publishing, live events, and people know my body of work, but they don't know who did the body of work, right? I've never been that front and center type person. I always just like doing the creative and so forth. Like people don't know, like the Civil War trade paperback or the design, the trade dress. You talk about branding. Like I developed all of that material. I did all the tent poles for the Marvel publishing stuff. So I'm very brand focused, brand led that way. And obviously it shows in my stuff. But for me, it's like they don't know who did that work. Right. And so a lot of the social is saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've done, or this is what I'm currently doing because everything that we're doing in this particular space is really done by high level professionals that have been in the industry. Like I mentioned, like Leo himself, he worked at DC. Ren came from the UK. He's colored some stuff like Massive Ram God. And like I said, Raphael coming over for having worked with Marvel with Dazzlers, and myself obviously being there for years. So the quality of the material we know is there, the story is there. It's really just how do you find that audience to say, hey, we're here? And really, it's through those social channels that we're finding the most success and just building followers and what have you. We're in pre-launch right now for book two. We go officially and launch with in June for book two. So we'll see if that attempt at those efforts will translate it into new readers. And that'll be my litmus test for that. But no, socials is super valuable and it's a great way to engage with potential readers.
So why haven't you joined Blue Sky or TikTok yet?
So I have a Blue Sky account. I haven't really engaged with it. Same with X. I have them, but the ones that I'm mainly interacting with is Facebook because I happen to have a lot of friends, family, and so that was my starting point. Instagram was another big one for me. Again, Instagram is probably my number one out of those groups, and X just less. So. It's just only a certain amount of hours in a day, and between reviewing artwork, writing, illustrating myself, and marketing and publishing, it's like where do you spend your time that for maximum return on maximum effort, right? So it's like X and Blue Sky just happen to be the ones that have fallen off for me, and maybe that's something that will be a miss, and we'll learn from that, and we'll engage more with those in the future. But as of right now, X and Blue Sky specifically, we haven't really touched. TikTok, I know, there's a lot of content on TikTok, but again, it's leaving the desk to go make that material. And hopefully one day we'll have enough that we can start to go into that space as well. Because I know TikTok is huge.
Do you have a hashtag strategy of what you do? I know you have a
Mhm.
hashtag for Boy in the Bot in your company, but do you actually
Mhm.
post things at a certain time? Do you
Yeah.
use certain cue or certain hashtags? Do you have a strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, no, it's really important. I look at it as just casting nets and just trying to see and build that audience. Because again, I'm not It's not a big corporation that has this driving force behind it. It really is as mom and pop as they get. The hashtags help at least get you into those feeds. So yes, we have another door. Yes, we hashtag out the boy in the bot, but I'll also hashtag out like indie comics fan, indie comics art, all that support indie comics, because I think that's a really major important factor in all of this is to support this type of business. Not just speaking of it from my end, but just holistically as an industry. I think there's a lot of great stuff being done in this space that people should be taking a look at. And then, of course, tapping into Kickstarter and Indiegogo, hashtagging them. Another thing I'll do on my socials, I spoke to the folks at Indiegogo and they were great. Part of the conversation with them was having them be part, like a collaborator in the process. And obviously tying them to that body of work and then them flagging and signaling it out into their spaces as well is super helpful. But again, like I said, it's all trial and error right now for me. Again, this is my first full year, full swing of doing this, and it's all test and learn. And we'll see where the net of that becomes.
How do you feel about crowdfunding overall as a future of comics?
As an independent creator, I think it's vital. I think when you look at the current direct market now, of course, the Uber fan of me obviously wants to be in a direct market. We want to be in those comic shops, and our long-term plans are to get there. But right now, in the short term, it's really the crowdfunding model seems to work best, especially in the digital space, because you can reach more audience through digital at this point than brick and mortar. But to me, brick and mortar, there's a pride and joy in that brick and mortar side of things. And I think culturally, I think it still makes sense to be there. But right now, especially when you're trying to build an audience, I think being in a digital space is super helpful. Kickstarter has a lot of eyeballs on there, maybe not always comic book related investors, backers, what have you, but you never know, who you're going to get the attention of and will help support. Now, to that point, when we talk about like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, some independents will crowdfund first, get that money, and then continue to produce their book. And then the book will come a year later or what have you, and that's fine. But what I try to do is self-fund everything up front. So by the time that we go to crowdfund, the time the launch starts, the book is already completed. And that launch is really to help me to determine my print run. And
Have
that's okay.
no, have you thought about releasing the issue in a digital format like an Indie Planet or doing print
Yes.
on demand through Indie Planet or drive-through comics?
What we're doing now is like we did the first campaign was print only through the crowdfunding. What we're going to do for book two is another offering is to offer it digitally. Book one will be offered digitally as well as book two as separate PDFs. And the idea there is, again, test and learn, learning curve stuff, was we learned that the books themselves, when you try to sell them overseas, the distribution of that, the mailing of that is so costly, the shipping, is that it becomes almost cost prohibitive in certain instances. And I have a pretty decent international group that is very interested in wanting to get this book and read it, but it was just hard to get it to them. So we figured, you know what, learn from that. We'll give them the digital copy of that because then that avoids the shipping component. The idea is that right now, if you go and you see those Kickstarter campaigns and Indiegogo campaigns, the books themselves are the main story is it's the full book from cover to cover is 72 pages each. The main story is 48. I do an 8-page backup story as well as design other extras in there like dossier pages and a bunch of other stuff. And the reason why is I wanted that to have a value from a set standpoint because when you do independent comic books, you have to price it at a certain price point because your print runs are so small. You're not going to compete at the $3.99 level with a Marvel or a DC. So you have to be higher. But to do that, you have to give them more value for that read, right? So it's almost like getting 2 issues plus in every one of these books. So by the time if you were to buy all 3 books, you have basically a 6-issue series in your hands. And that was the idea for that. And then part of that's exclusive, that sort of packaging format will be exclusive to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And then to your point earlier, yes, I want to put them into those other spaces, and we are absolutely looking at that. But I want to have all 6 chapters finished before I go that route so that I can put them out on a monthly basis.
You do have a digital strategy though, because you realize that a digital market is
Absolutely.
important.
At 100%. Absolutely. Matter of fact, I had friends when I was first doing the first book, They're saying, hey, are you going to offer this digitally? And I said, not yet. I'm testing. I want to see the interest in print because, again, I'm just more passionate about print myself, but it's my own bias on it. But I do believe digital has its place and to correct, I would say, has a wider net. So, yes, absolutely. But again, I want to have all 6 issues done before I release them into any of those other platforms. So I know that they're going to come out verbatim every month. I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff.
Is it better to have a well plan or just go by the seat of your pants?
No, I think two parts of that. One, I think the first round of this, I think we did go a little bit seat of the pants, saying, hey, people, there's enough friends and family that know me well enough that would support this. But I think my misstep was not building a larger audience outside of that and seeing what comes, right? And at that level of promotion. Like I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm not on talking every day on some YouTube channel for promotion. So again, it's really finding those ways to build an audience, create the most amount of buzz, noise, whatever you want to call it. And that's where now I'm being a little bit more methodical and more calculated in our approach. Again, just trying to get the word out, and we'll see what the net is when we launch book 2 officially. And we'll see if we gained readership, if we maintained what we have. Because it's a book 2, sometimes you lose people because the excitement of just partaking in book 1 is over. So it's like, what does that look like? So again, we're still in that trial and error kind of vibe of this. But yes, for me, I think it's being more calculated. In the end, hopefully, we'll have a better net.
Thomas Marvelli, Another Door Comics. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It was fascinating and informative. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
No, and thank you for hosting me, and I really appreciate the time and your platform for doing so. So thank you very much.